Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are thrilled that you have joined us today. We have a great demo in store for you. We're just going to wait a few moments for everybody to filter in and get situated. Great time to grab some water, coffee, whatever you're feeling on this Thursday, and we will just give it about 2 minutes. If you're just entering into the meeting, thanks so much for joining. We have a great demo in store. Just going to give everybody 1 more minute to filter in. Thanks for your patience. All right, looks like we are ready and set. Thank you so much again for joining. We're really thrilled that you're here. And just a reminder, if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the question box on the side. Other than that, I think we are ready to go, and I'll turn it over to our presenter, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Madison. And again, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to be talking a lot today about AttackIQ and data and putting some stuff together so that we can start to really get to some conclusions and have some better conversations. I'm going to be really excited to show you also this capability that we have here with AttackIQ notebooks to put together some more data from a few different sources. We have to keep adopting this threat-informed defense mindset because the way we've been experiencing it, and I know I've experienced it as a practitioner myself, even before I got into the onto the sales side of things, because I'm a sales engineer here and have been for quite a while. But one of the things that I see is that we get pretty set in looking for the vulnerabilities and making sure that we patch things and keeping up with things for compliance, and that's good. That's a great thing to do. We need to keep doing that. However, we can't do it in a silo. We can't do it completely cut off from everything else. We need to make sure that we have other bits of visibility in that so that we know how it all fits together. Is that machine that's vulnerable also exploitable? Is anyone able to actually do anything on that box after we found those things? So let's add another layer of data to that equation. And we look for the real security outcomes of all of these things that we're constantly measuring for, regardless of the security control. You look at the bottom of the screen right there, that little histogram could represent something along the lines of, hey, I've done all this kinds of testing before and I do pretty well. But one of the things that we really look very closely at here at AttackIQ is in the testing of all of those security controls, and to do it as closely as reality as possible. Thinking about things like an attacker, you look at that graph as you see it in the middle of the screen. This is something that we call an attack graph. And that attack graph will emulate an attacker group's campaign, will emulate a piece of ransomware or malware, and take those individual behaviors. So you see those little white boxes here. These are all individual behaviors of that attack campaign or that piece of malware running in a sequence, so you can measure the performance of all of your security controls against the entire outcome from start to finish, from the initial access all the way through to the exfiltration of the impact, if we're thinking about this, especially in terms of MITRE attack. And then how can we verbalize all of this? Are we prepared for one of those advanced adversarial campaigns. This is one of those campaigns you see over there on the right-hand side of the screen that we name out. We have many, many others that are sitting in the platform. And then the question that you ask yourself, if you're looking at Conti or you're looking at insert name of threat actor group that may be threatening me, is how am I testing and what am I using to test? Now, I always say that there's two ways that you can test out your security controls to make sure that they work in this context. And that's that, well, you can do it or you can have someone else do it for you. I kind of know what I want the answer for my organization to be. And this is the value that AttackIQ brings to you, is that you can start doing that evaluation. You can start doing that testing to see how well your people, process, technology are performing against all of these different types of threat active behaviors, campaigns. And you can use our security optimization platform as, and many of us, will also call us breach and attack simulation if you've been familiarized with that term as well, for the automation of that security control validation. You identify your gaps, you prioritize your strategies to enhance your security readiness, and there's a few different ways that you can do that. You can manage it, we can manage it with you, we can manage it for you. So there's a few different ways that you can do that. It all just comes down to what services you need and how much help you need. This continuously helps you improve your security stack with the evidence for all of these different types of attacks. How well are we performing and where do we need some additional help? And it gives you all of this data all along the line, from the execution of the individual attack scenarios all the way through the reporting. So you can see your security controls like your EDR, your firewall, how your cloud controls performing. And we can do these step-by-step attack paths to help you continuously improve that defensive posture as we look at the entire attack lifecycle. Now we can start to also, and I'm going to start dropping some hints for this as well, that we can now start to do some data gathering from a vulnerability management service, and then combine that CVE data with that MITRE attack data into one data enrichment engine to even further help with that decision-making power. We can continuously emulate with realism. This is what I was mentioning earlier. You come at us with those real attack campaigns, and then we see how our controls perform against those campaigns, against those individual behaviors. Our adversary research team, security experts, logging experts, threat intel research experts, these are all people that are putting together these scenarios in the proper order with the proper method of execution so that they happen with realism, and you can test these things in production. You do not have to put these things into a lab environment somewhere. You can use them against your real controls. And the way that we engineer these is that they are safe to run in production. We are not trying to demonstrate a distributed denial of service attack against your environment. We're not trying to blue screen machines here, but we will show you each of those individual behaviors, and then we clean up after ourselves. So all of those things will be the real style of those attacks, while at the same time minimizing any kind of risk that you would have to your environment with the execution of that. You can start to take some of this information that you have right here, and then we can take it a step further, because we can also do some dashboarding to take a look at some of that performance measurement. Here we can create these dashboards across the entire environment. And here I can see what's my performance look like for all of those, we call those assessments. It's a grouping of scenarios for a given purpose. And then how are we performing here against the MITRE attack framework, my tactics, techniques, procedures, all of these, even down to sub-techniques if they're applicable. What's our performance look like? And all of this, by the way, completely customizable, filterable. I can look at specific time ranges. I can create heat maps for this. This is all really, really easy to customize, and many of these charts and graphs are available right out of the box. So it shows me that. It can also show me over time, how are all of my controls performing? I look at this, this split pie graph right here. It's showing me month over month how many times that I see these different types of controls that haven't been detecting. these scenarios that have been running all of these different types of attacks. So it gives me a good idea of, I need to go and take a look at this control over here. Why is this one not detecting so many things that I expected to have done over that given period of time? I can also slice the data so that I can take a look at things like threat actors, because what we do is for all of those attack scenarios, think those individual actions, we tag those with the threat actor groups. If these are tied to any US CERT alerts, what we do is we're also looking at high US CERT alerts. And if something pops up that would be notable, especially a high US CERT alert, that's going to trigger us to have content here in the platform for you, usually within about 24 hours, that you'd be able to have actionable content that you can use right there on the platform. You start using those tags to say, well, how often are we stopping and seeing, preventing and detecting those different types of scenarios that are mapped back to those threat actor groups that really matter to us? And I know I've had that happen to me before, where someone in senior management comes back and says, well, I just saw this thing on the news, this US CERT alert. How are we performing against that with this with the assets that we have? Are we susceptible to this? And this gives you really quick and easily digestible feedback that you can say, oh yes, we've tested against this, and either we're good or we need to do a little bit of additional work and put in a couple of emergency change requests so that we can fix this thing right now, driving decisions and doing it accurately and quickly. You can take that further and say different ransomware families, different malware families. If we know that these things are affecting our industry, we can quickly and easily say how well we are performing against each of those threats. Let's take that as another step further. There's another way that we can use that data to set us free to have those conversations and pull information out of it, and it's called AttackIQ notebooks. Let's go ahead and grab that and see what it looks like. The AttackIQ notebooks, these are powered by Jupyter, JupyterHub, and what these do is they allow you to take a series of these text blocks, think like Markdown, something easily digestible on a web page, combine those with code blocks. We're using Python in this case, and all easily readable and customizable. And then these will help you to create some really powerful visualizations based on the data that you're pulling out. There's a few different types of conversations that you can have with these as well. And by the way, these are available out of the box with the AttackIQ notebooks. There's a tiered system of reporting that we're thinking about here, because we know that you have to have different conversations with different types of audiences. You start at the top here, you have this board of directors tier 1. How can we quickly and easily communicate our security effectiveness to the board of directors? You would only want to look at, okay, I have this threat actor group right here, and are we, do we have the right controls in place or not? Are we able to stop and see this attacker or not? Very quick and easy, decisive points. We can give you that. And we also give you the talking points and exactly how to use those visuals. We do the same thing with tier 2, tier 3, adding additional granularity, adding additional data points that those audiences would really want to be able to see, and showing you how you can communicate those data points effectively. The use cases that we have available out of the box here, you can see that there are a lot here for, and that top one right there is the one I was just talking about, that adversary campaign emulation assessment. How are we doing against insert name of threat actor here that we've been testing against? Different types of security control policy validations across your endpoint and network security controls. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about here today is this alignment of vulnerability and risk management. I'm going to take a very specific focus on that one today. What we have here is we have a few different disparate sources of data. And what we want to be able to do is to take that information and put it together in such a way that we can combine those. What we want to be able to do is take the data that we get from these vulnerability management systems, like Qualys, like Tenable, like Rapid7. Take this information that we're getting about those CVEs that we have, where are we vulnerable as an organization, and then be able to assess the same types of assets that we have there with what we're testing over here with AttackIQ. Remember what I mentioned a few moments ago, It's great that I have these systems that I have vulnerabilities for, but how exploitable are those boxes? That's what we're able to show off with this enrichment engine that combines the data from both of these types of solutions. I'll be focusing specifically on Qualys and a little bit on Tenable today. And what this affords you then is this comprehensive view of your cybersecurity risk posture, looking at both of these solutions together. An example very quickly of the reporting that you would see, and we're looking at the Tenable type of report here. I'm going to show off the Qualys one in a demonstration. We do show you this information, and what it does is it's going to break down the information in these different types of sections. The first one right here is looking at the criticality of the asset, and what it's doing is it's matching up. I have these assets in this case, Tenable, that has an agent on it. It was running those scans, and then we also have a matching test point sitting here in AttackIQ that we've run this in what we call as our security controls baseline assessment, testing for different types of controls that are in your environment. And I'll just I'll put a little pointer here on a couple of things like this AV test, this endpoint test, and I'll show off the scenarios, the individual actions when I do the demonstration. But that's how we're filtering all of these things in here, is then showing you test by test the different types of scenarios and how well these types of systems are performing. I then take a look at the security control effectiveness by the Tenable asset tagging. How critical is this asset here? This one happens to be a medium criticality asset that we have that matches here in AttackIQ. And how well are these performing? Are they prevented or detected? Are we stopped from doing this, or are we seeing these things? So I can see immediately for this medium criticality host that we got a couple of issues here with DLP and as well as with the endpoint technology. So I know a couple of ways already that if I'm really concerned about DLP, especially from this kind of asset, then I'm immediately going to go and take a look at that. So let's keep moving on here. Next things that it'll show me, it'll also break the information down, again, by the MITRE attack framework, putting this stuff in together, looking at, and it's taking apart those tests a little bit and showing you those different types of scenarios and showing you where you have effectiveness and where you need a little bit of extra work. There are other things that we can do here with these AttackIQ notebooks. So like I said, this is powered by Jupyter, and all of this is really using a series of Python code. So this is a little bit more about the notebooks that I was mentioning earlier, doing the granular breakdown of all of these. And you can see it probably looks like an eye chart for you, but this is APT29, this is FIN6, those different types of threat actor groups and how well you're performing. These are different areas where you need a little bit of work as an organization. This one is going to be quite a bit more granular, but of course you can make these very, very high level and see how we're performing month over month for some of these threat actors that really, really matter to us. Ultimately, what this does is it enables you to continue making better decisions with the data. I'm now going to move over into the demonstration of this. So I'll give you a quick overview of the platform, then we'll dive into the AttackIQ notebook section. This, of course, is a great time as any for any questions as I shift my screen here for just a couple of seconds. Just give me one moment. Just take this off screen here. And I will move over to my demonstration. There we go. And now what I'll do here is, and I don't see anything in chat right now, okay? And what I am going to do now is show you the platform. As soon as you log into the AttackIQ platform, and this is typically delivered in a SaaS fashion, it's what most of my customers are in right now, although there's an on-prem option available if that's required. It puts me in this landing page that I see right here. It's gonna immediately put up some content that is probably gonna speak my language. So I'm looking at this what's new section over here, and it's gonna show me some of the latest writings that the adversary research team has put out, even some of these things that we can go ahead and try out ourselves because this is content that we're putting into the platform. I can see how healthy my platform is right at a glance. I can see that all of my test points are checking in and that they're healthy, and that my integration manager, what's speaking to my the security stack to see whether or not we have detections, that's healthy, and I have a healthy set of active integrations. Fantastic. I'm also able to see some of the newest content over here as well. So I have a few other things. I even have a few things that I haven't even looked at yet because it looks like they just got published today. So I'm going to go take a look at some of those later. But what we're constantly giving you right up front is what's the newest stuff in the platform and how am I looking at a glance before I start diving into the content here in the platform. The next thing that I'll show you is how you can get started with it, because there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of scenarios in here. There's a lot of assessment templates in here. And what we do is we give you these blueprints, these templates, these ways to immediately get started using the platform. You can start these blueprints. These walk you through every step of the way, exactly how to check the overall health. In this case, of your platform, get started with your integration manager, check the health, get started with everything related to this platform. And there are ones in here as well that'll show you how to use different types of use cases, scenarios, assessment templates. We're going to guide you all along the way and make this as easy as possible to do. Taking apart some of those scenarios here for a minute, I'm now looking at my scenario library. Seeing down here at the bottom, we have about 4,000 different attack scenarios here in the library, each of these doing something different. I'll take a look at just one of these for a moment, this bypass UAC. This is a nice little privilege escalation scenario that we have here. Each of these attack scenarios will give you a plain English language description right up here that says this is what the attack scenario is and does, what's its goal. If there are any parameters, think ways you can customize these attack scenarios, all of these are also laid out for you. So it's easy for you to understand this entire scenario soup to nuts right over here just by looking at the scenario description. We do also provide you here at the bottom, and this is going to be important. I always talk about these tags for these attack scenarios. This is how we organize the content here on the platform all the way through, from the attack tactics, the techniques, the sub-techniques, if any of these are applicable, what threat actor groups or malware families are known to use these things. All of this is right here in the tagging of the scenarios. We do also provide you, for those that would like to do so, you can download the source code of any and all of our attack scenarios anytime you wish. We are an open, I'm not going to say we're open source, but we are an open box platform. You can take a look at the scenarios anytime you like. And you can also use these parameters. All of these are going to have different context parameters based on the scenario, and you can customize these however you want and save them however you want, and just put that in the platform as your own scenario. Use that as much as you like. Moving on to the ways that these get organized then into use cases that you can pull right off the shelf and use. What we have right here is our assessment template library. Quite a few of these here as well. Now, I take a look at some of these names, and I like to always put this right up front here because these are some of the latest things that we have here on the platform. Our adversary research team is constantly working on what's the latest and greatest threats, what are the different ways that we can emulate these behaviors inside of a customer's environment and help them test out their security controls. So some of these are linked back to threat actor groups, some of these are linked back to ransomware families, things like that. But what we're going to be looking at specifically here today is going to be, and I searched through my template names, I'm going to be searching for my security controls baseline, because that's where we're going to get started with the type of reporting that we're doing here today. The security controls baseline, what it really does is that it takes that concept of, and you saw it here before when I mentioned tests. We take these tests, we put scenarios into tests. It's a grouping of scenarios with a label on it, that's all it is. And then put all of them together, put a label on that and say, that's what this is going to be testing. Think of this like a broad swipe across your environment to say, let's throw a stake in the ground and see how we're doing with our control stack today. And then baseline that and then move on from there and see how we can continue to improve over time and see if we can run this over and over again and make sure we don't drift away. When I want to run this, all I would need to do is click on this once and then click on the create assessment, and it will populate an assessment for me, and then I could just move on from there. I've already done that for you just so we can see those results. So when I start to take a look at, and this is going to be security controls baseline right over here, it brings me to, and let me just bring you to the setup here real quick so you can see how easy that is to do. What it does is it automatically populates these tests with all of the scenarios that we were just talking about. If I wanted to customize any of these are really easy to do. I can do that anytime I like. But what you then need to do is say, well, it's going to run here in this grouping of scenarios. I can select that and choose whichever ones I like. The most important thing that I had to do here was make sure that at least one of those had an asset that was also being tested by, in my case, I'm looking at Qualys. I then choose to run those on demand, or I choose to run this on a schedule. I have this schedule to run on a regular basis. When I take a look at those results, I now get a history of those results, and I can see how all of my assets performed for each of those tests that we ran. So when I take a look at that, it's now going to provide me with a histogram of, hey, what's our historical run rate? Do I have any drift over time? It's taking a couple of extra seconds because I have a lot of assets and things that I was running in this one. So when I take a look at this, and by the way, I can look at any of these results anytime I like, because they're all going to be stored right there on the platform. But I take a look at one of these, and now it will tell me over time which of these scenarios were prevented asset by asset, which ones were detected, did I get those detections back, what was the control that saw it. So this is giving me really, really fine point details about how each of these attack scenarios ran, and that is fantastic. What we're here to do today is to pull together this information with the information from our vulnerability management system. And this is where the AttackIQ notebooks are going to come into play. So now we know the data is there, and the data is also going to be in Qualys. So let's pull this stuff together and take a look at that report. I have this hub already running. This is powered by Jupyter. And now I'm going to take a look at specifically the Qualys enrichment summary report. So it's going to take that information and my security controls validation assessment. And I'm going to view that Jupyter notebook right now. And this is now what this one does. You see it says it's the Qualys Enrichment Summary Report. What it's going to do, and I'm going to just really paraphrase a lot of this, is that it will take the information from your Qualys VMDR tenancy regarding all of those scanned assets, then take all of the related results for the security controls baseline assessment, that same one we were just looking at. And it's going to take the most recent execution. So it grabs the most recent, really probably the most valid data that you have there, because that's what's happening right now. All you really need in order to run this, of course, other than having Qualys and AttackIQ in this case, you need a little bit of information, your host URL, username, password. Notice that I'm going to put this in live in front of you. We do mask that field, and then we also never store these passwords, credentials anywhere in the platform. And then we're going to have a pretty similar table to what we saw before. So this is the markdown. All of the code is going to be right down here below. What all I really need to do is just click this little fast forward button right here, and that's going to then start running all of those cells, and it's going to start to ask me for the information that it needs. I have an indication right over here that the kernel is currently busy. It's running all of the code right now. I scroll up to the top right here because what I'm looking for is making sure that this continues to execute, and it is. Fantastic. It's going to ask me in just a few seconds for the information that it needs in order to be able to continue, and that's going to be everything that I need to access the Qualys, since the information to access the AttackIQ platform is already there, and that's what I was looking for, was that little Q right there. So let me go ahead and grab this information. I'm going to put my my host URL in there, and then I have my username, and then I also have my password. Just grab that, and again, this will be invisible to everyone else around, and that's fine. Boom, there we go. Don't worry about that. That's fine. It's really more of a warning than an error. And now what it's doing is it's giving me a little indicator with these bars right here saying that it's ingesting everything that it needs from Qualys, and then it's also done ingesting all of its vulnerabilities. So now it's going to start moving on with the rest of the notebook that's here. So it's going to continue moving right through this. You can actually walk this through for every single code block if this is something that you wanted to be able to do. We do not hide any of this code from you. It's all visible. So you can see exactly what it's doing all along the way. And this provides you with a really good bit of visibility as well, because if this is something that you wanted to be able to do yourself, we've done a lot of that heavy lifting for you. So if this is something else that you wanted to be able to further customize, take this and run with it. This is completely fine. Part of why we did this as well is to show you how to harness the power of the platform itself as you continue to run these things. So now what it's doing is it's continuing to grab all of the rest of the information from AttackIQ, and then it will continue to render all of the results. As I take a quick breath here, I'm also taking a look at the chat. Don't see if there's any questions in there at the moment, and that's fine. You see now it's already started to pop out some more of those tables there. It should move through the rest of this pretty quickly. And yeah, it's just about done. It's doing a few more things here. Yeah, now it's going to do things like generate the PDF report as well as the HTML report. And now I have my output right here at the bottom. Probably took about 2 minutes or so, given how much I've been talking. It also gives me this little indicator up here that with the clear bubble that it's now done. I can now download both of these reports, and I'm going to show off the PDF one right here. So I'll take a look at this PDF one. There it is. There's my Qualys Enrichment Summary Report. Generated right over here, exactly when I did it in UTC time, of course. And this is now what it provides me, is it's going to show me my security control effectiveness by quality asset criticality. So we saw it from the Tenable side before. Now we're looking at it from the Qualys perspective. Now we have this one asset over here that matches, and it has that Qualys asset criticality of 5. And for each of those tests that we were looking at before, remember the AV, the endpoint, we have a couple of gaps right here that we should be looking at in terms of the DLP testing, the firewall testing, and the IPS testing. So the endpoint controls look pretty good. The network security controls probably need a little bit of attention. I scroll a little bit further down. I'm now able to see this has also been tagged as critical infrastructure within Qualys. So that's also something that provides me with a little bit of concern that I have this critical infrastructure that has a few different types of ways that we were able to execute different types of network attacks against that particular box right there. I'm looking through each of these individual TTPs. And yep, so there's a little bit of command and control that I was able to do, a little bit of ingress tool transfer on that box over there. We do also break down then here by the asset itself, like this is the one we were looking at, and now I can start to cross compare. Hey, these are some of the vulnerabilities that this box is known to have based off of the latest Qualys scan that we had. How does this then match up with everything that we've been running against this box? So that's how I can really start to bring together a lot of this data, because now I have that data in 2 disparate sources. And now just using this notebook right here, I'm able to start saying, well, yeah, I have these critical servers that also have these vulnerabilities, but what types of attacks am I able to run on them? Is this stuff that really provides a risk to us as an organization? And this is what can really help you to drive that type of decision, because now you're able to see that, yeah, you can start to get some malicious looking files on these boxes, but if this is something that's also never going to run the type of exploit that you're considering here, well, it's really kind of a horse of a different color. But if I'm looking at different types of network security controls and making sure that we can't do any DLP from this box, then it's possible that one may serve as a jump point. Or if I'm concerned especially about my endpoint security controls and I have vulnerabilities there related to that, It's a great way of being able to take those two data sources and now put them together into this one report. So it really does become a really good force multiplier for both of those solutions working together. And that's really the demonstration of the using the power of AttackIQ notebooks powered by Jupyter to start now enriching that data that you had from both Qualys or really any other VMS that you have, along with the AttackIQ platform using today Qualys, Tenable, and I believe Rapid7 was in there as well. I'm going to close out with just one more slide right over here, and that's going to be the call to action. There is that if you wanted to see more, especially from our adversary research team, head over to attackiq.com/research, and you can get a lot of great information there. And then you can also please follow us on social, on LinkedIn, on Twitter at AttackIQ. That's the content that I had prepared for you here today. I'm really, really excited to show this off to you. We're always happy to host more demos, have more conversations about these things. But are there any additional questions from anything that I've shown here today?
Hey, Joe, thanks so much. Not seeing any questions currently, but maybe we give it about a minute. If anyone does have a question, please just drop it in the box on the side and we'll get that answered for you. Just give it about a minute.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm not seeing anything. Means you did a great job, Joe.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. We hope that you really got a lot out of this. And always, if questions do pop up once you log off, please feel free to reach out to us. We are always happy to get those answered for you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.